Shop. I'm Jared, and I'm here tonight with Greg.
Hello.
I do believe Paul might be joining us later. Uh, I appreciate everybody getting on tonight. We're gonna have a kind of an interesting uh, session. It's going to be about the military and its, I guess you could say, the combat readiness and physical readiness of troops. Um, I guess that's kind of important. And also, the combat readiness of what where we're at. So this is kind of where we're looking. Um, I was just reading an article, and they were and what brought this on, and I was looking at the Military Times. I look at the Military Times, and then I look at other resources. I don't just look at one resource. And then I look at a military journal, medical journal, and it does say, it does back the claim of them getting hurt 37% higher in basic training now.
Mhm. All
Yeah,
from certain states. They
really.
were from like five southern states,
Hmm.
not Texas. It was, I think it was Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky,
Hmm.
and somewhere else.
Hmm. That's weird because I just figured, with COVID and them getting lazy, and you know, now kids are, you know, they don't work like they did back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, even in the 70s and 80s. Um, they just don't do it anymore, and that's kind of a big deal because back then your body was used to the stress, it was used to working, it was used to the physicality of the jobs and whatever they had on. So,
Well, a lot of kids don't even play sports anymore because it costs so much money now. And because both parents generally work, and most school districts don't even provide after school transportation for the athletes. And
mm-mm.
they've moved athletics into the school day. So, used to, like when I came up in the 80s, you played football, wrestled, ran track, whatever. That was seventh period. Like that was after the end of your school day. And then they had a late bus that took you home if you rode the bus. They don't do that anymore. They moved it into the school day. So, yeah, they're at the end of the day or whatever, but now they've got weird times. They practice in the middle of the day, and it just doesn't make any sense. And I think a lot of the kids just don't want to deal with it. And so you
Yeah,
get,
some of these new schedules is weird because when I was in high school, I mean, even we didn't have A day and B day. They did what they called the accelerated block schedule. So you do 8 classes uh, a year, basically. So you have it basically broke down in two sections. Christmas, you'll have your midterms or your finals, and it depends on the class. Or you'll have, your 12 weeks or 18 weeks, I think it is, whatever it is. And then I think you got what, 3 6 weeks, and then Christmas, and then you got another 3 6 weeks or something. So I don't
mm-hmm.
remember, but it
It's
was
weird.
something just like that. And then we had a split on one of those where, like, we would go to hell on certain days, like on our Fridays for
Mm-hmm.
the first or every day after Christmas, football season, and that it would actually equal out, to a whole 3 weeks or whatever it was going to class. But that's how they got around that. But I mean, still, it was just weird because when we were at football, the JV practice third period, fourth period, it was athletics, and you were already suited out, so you got that whole period, and then you know the school's out, and then you're already there, so you're already continuing to play football practice. And the JV, we played Thursday nights opposite. The ninth grade played at the high school, I think it was, or the eighth grade, something. I don't even remember all that. That's been, Jesus Christ, yeah, years ago. But
But it was
anyway,
all
I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things that
Well,
I
and
didn't see that us being as physical as we were, even in high school. I mean, we were running. Well, I ran 16:48, 10 laps. So that's what, 2, 3 miles, 2.5. I
mhm.
think it's like 2.5 miles. And man, I forgot I was in good shape back then. I was booking it.
I didn't have a car until I was 17, so I ran everywhere before and after practice. I ran to school in the morning. I ran home in the evening. I got done with football practice and ran myself to the lumber yard where I was working.
Must have been nice.
But we had, like, I had football, and so in off-season football, I had track, and then when track was off season, I had off-season football, off-season track, and then I went to wrestling before I went to work.
Yeah.
So, when I went in the
Well,
military and they were like, "Hey, we're going to run 2 miles." So,
but
okay, dude.
I mean, you just have to look at the generation of kid that's coming up now. The generations of kids that are coming now is not like it was back then. You know, me and you, we grew up in a different. You grew up in a different era completely than me because you were in the 70s and 80s.
I've had a job pretty much every day since I was 13 years old.
Well, back in the 1880s or whatever they did that shit. But I'm talking about me just in the 80s, mid to late 80s, growing up into the 90s. Uh, you know, we didn't have a phone. We didn't even know what the hell a cell phone was.
That was
Like,
something you saw on TV.
yeah, there nobody could afford one. Maybe some big rich CEO guy might have one, when he flies on his plane or whatever. But you'll never see one on, every day. So our entertainment was y'all go outside, you ride your bikes, you go play football, you go play baseball, basketball, do whatever the hell y'all do, get all that energy out and then come home. Nowadays, your parents look at you, you can't go outside because your ass gonna get kidnapped or you'll just get jumped or something because you live in a bad neighborhood. Or if we send you to the school to play on the playground, you might end up like on the news. So we don't want to.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, so what do? They either on a cell phone or in their room on video games. They're
Well,
not building the structure of the bones growing up in the development process. It's not building the muscles and it's not developing the brain process and the dopamine drop and adrenaline drops that the kids need to overcome all the anxiety and the energy and all that. And so now you start having autism, ADHD, discipline problems, children acting out, and then they say, "Well, that's uh, society becoming more violent." No,
well, also you have to look at how, how our military has changed. I mean, think about it. I went in the military in 1985, the first time, right?
right,
How has the military changed? Take the military as a separate society, right? We used to be apart from society. We had our own set of rules that were more strict that we had to live by. We had to be a certain way, act a certain way, look a certain way, do a certain way.
right.
And over the time I was in the military, I watched that change to where it started picking up the societal norms from out in town. We used to be told when I first went in, "Hey, you're in the military now. You ain't back on the block no more." Now, last time I was at Fort Hood or whatever they call it now, Fort, I forget. Um, it was the hood. Like they had to shut down the enlisted club because of too much gang activity.
Wow.
So I watched the military change. I mean, I was in different branches for 30 years, man. And I watched it go from, if you showed up with your mustache a little too far past the end of your mouth, which you weren't allowed to have a mustache until you were an E5, right? And then if you showed up with a little too far past the end of your mouth, all hell was gonna break loose. To by the time I left, we had female soldiers showing up with hoop earrings and bright red fingernails, and you'd be like, if you tried to say something to them, you were the one gonna get in trouble because now you're harassing them, and it's like, well, the book says you can't be that way. So what did they do? They changed the book.
Yeah,
They didn't make the people change. They changed the book.
yeah. You can't go to standard now. The standard has to be changed for you.
Right.
And that's even who was it? It wasn't Mattis. There was another Secretary of the Navy or whatever was talking about, or the no Commandant of the Marine Corps is what it was. He was talking about the Force Recon program, and they were talking about, hey, you need to lower the standard so the females can pass. And he said, no. He said, I have put many a men through that school. He said, and they passed. And the reason they passed is because they met the standard. If you don't meet the standard, you don't pass. And he was like, I'm not training a bunch of wimps to go out into combat and just do nothing. He's like, I'm training the most hardcore of the most hardcore.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's just face it. It's
And that's
not.
not
It's
it.
not about.
Period.
It's not about holding women back. It's not about pushing men forward or whatever you want to be. It's about not everybody can do that job. Like not every male can become force recon. Not every male can become special forces. So not every female can do it. So if on average females have 30% less bone density and what is it 28% less muscularity, right? Somewhere in that neighborhood. So then you take into the fact that only say 2% of the males in the military can make it into special forces and successfully finish the course or force recon, right? So now let's just diminish that number by 30% since females on average are roughly 30% smaller than us, right? Pound for pound. So reduce 2% by 30%. What do you get? What is that, like 0.13%, somewhere in that neighborhood?
So,
So that's how many females are going to make it if you keep the standard. I have no problem with that. I've never had a problem with that. What I have a problem with is when they tell you, hey, everybody can do every job they want to do. There was jobs I wanted to do I couldn't do.
right.
You know, there was jobs probably you wanted to do in the military that you couldn't do, right? It just wasn't something you were going to be able to accomplish.
No,
We
not at all.
all have things in our lives that we just got to learn our limits. You know, I mean, I lifted weights for years, but I wasn't going to go to the strongest man contest. It just ain't going to happen, right? I ain't big enough.
Yeah, because I'm going to Mr. Olympia, right?
Yeah. You know,
With
when I
my,
played
my beer
football in
belly
high
and
school,
everything. Just let's get it. Come
when
on.
I played football in high school, even if I would have been a spectacular player, and I was not, I was just an average Joe. If I had have been a spectacular player in my day, I couldn't have went to college because I only weighed 175 pounds. In 1986, a 5'9", 175 pounder might as well have been playing on the junior high team when it come to college time.
Yeah, and same thing here. I mean, I was never going to be a great football player. Hell, I was 5'2", 140 pounds,
Yeah,
soaking wet. I mean,
I was just
I wasn't fast. I mean, hell,
I was that kid just like when I went to the military. If I went out to do something, at the end of the day, all they could say was he left it all on the field. I'd give them 110%. My 110% might not have been as good as somebody else's 110%, but they get everything I had to give them. And people don't do that anymore. You
mm,
know, I mean, look at even athletics now, right? Talking about the athletes going into the military. When you and I were growing up, there was no they didn't say, well, a baseball pitcher only has so many pitches in that arm. And you got kids now starting in little league baseball, they're tracking how many pitches they throw. Okay, he can only throw 10 pitches today, and then we got to switch him out.
mhm.
Well, how did people like Nolan Ryan survive? Like that dude could still throw a ball faster than 90% of the people in professional baseball.
Oh yeah, oh
And
yeah.
so it doesn't make any sense. Like they're trying to build these super athletes in the military. There was a theory in the military talking about PT, right? Physical fitness. and it was a few years back, and there was an article. I'd have to go find it, but it was they were talking to the chief of the cyber warrior program, and he was talking about a program that the Navy was trying to institute where it was MOS based PT, right? Well, he liked the idea because he said, "Hey, look, I'm in charge of the cyber warrior program." He's like, "I don't need Olympic athletes." He said, "I need that kid that can stay awake on Red Bull and Cheetos for 36 hours in his mama's basement in the dark, writing code at 35 bajillion digits a minute. That's the guy I need. I don't care whether he can run or not." But the military says, "Well, we got to have super athletes." Well, not everybody needs to be a super athlete.
No.
You know, you're putting people through basic training. So basic training is just that, it's basic, right? Then they came out with this new, what, I don't know how many ever, 27 exercise PT test, right? Which they claim is more realistic, but is it really? Because do you stack ammo cans every day?
No.
Do you drag a 120-pound sled every day? No. And most people in the military don't need to do that. So they're they're looking at people getting hurt based on the fact that the military has reduced itself to a societal norm instead of having its own societal norm like it used to have, right? And so the people that are going into the military now are used to this lower level of physical fitness and activity, and then they get there and you expect them to be something different.
Right.
But who's the largest investor in the gaming industry? The Department of Defense. They spend more money in the gaming industry. They use that gaming technology for other things, but it supports the gaming industry. And what does that provide?
Hmm.
It provides them people with hand-eye coordination who are desensitized to violence mentally, right? Not physically, but mentally. But then the byproduct of that is that kid got desensitized mentally and developed that hand-eye coordination by sitting on the couch for 37 hours a day playing video games.
Yeah.
I was around when the first video games came out, the old Atari 2600. Before that, it was the little Pong machine, right? Dude, my parents wouldn't let me play because you had to hook it to the TV. My parents be like, "You can play from 11 to 1, and then you get your butt out the house." Period. Right? But the problem now is kids have access to everything. Right? They can play games 48 hours a day, so they don't get outside much. You know, and they don't have that. They don't. It's harder for them to get jobs now. Like here in Texas, you think about it. With the other problems we have here in Texas, people wise, you got grown folks out there taking jobs that used to be jobs for teenagers, right? That was their way to get into the work world, to learn to work. Well, they
Hmm.
can't hardly get those jobs anymore because you got grown folks out there trying to make a living, pushing carts at Walmart.
Yep.
And
But
I mean, the kids that do get a job are very lucky to find one, because nobody will hire them till they're 18 hardly now. They say they will, but they won't. And I understand why. Teenagers are undependable, right? Because most of them can't drive, so they're dependent on mom and dad to get there, whatever. And kids don't walk nowhere today, right? They'll walk 2 or 3 blocks. That's as good as it gets,
well, I used to
unless
want to
they're at
walk
Six
10
Flags.
miles just to get to a damn fishing hole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he'll walk 10 miles to get to a fishing hole, but he won't walk 2 blocks to get to work. But yeah, I know that.
I mean, it's kind of different where I lived when I was a kid, though, because
Well, yeah, I mean, you lived out. You couldn't just walk to get a job.
yeah, my closest neighbor was like 2.5 miles away.
Yeah,
All right, so but walking to the neighbor's house was hell.
yeah,
Much less going all the way to school, which was I think like 11.6 miles or
right.
something, 11.7. But that was just to the junior high, and then you got the high school, which is another like 6 miles down the road up on the north side, going out of town. So
Well,
you're
that's
looking at like 15-mile walk every morning.
yeah.
No, no, no. especially not after football practice. Oh, good no. So yeah, I can understand, where I grew up. But if you're in a city and you're walking around like Dallas, you know how many places there are that are hiring within just I could
Oh
walk
yeah,
here to the little Hispanic market, get a job there.
yeah.
I don't speak much Spanish,
But
they do
but
something.
you're an adult. Kids go in there and try to get a job, and they're like, well, we don't want to hire you at 15, 16 years old because we can't really trust you to put you on the cash register or whatever. Like mine, where he works, they make him work the cash register. He hates that crap. If it was up to him, he would just unload trucks all day. He's perfectly happy unloading trucks all day because it doesn't require math. You know.
And I'm not great at math. I was never the best at math. I was decent at math, and now I've gotten a lot better. Uh, and then I married an Asian, and sometimes I have to correct her, and I'm like, oh, this is not right. But that's just stereotypical me, just being a butthead. But she knows I'm an asshole, and I love her, but still.
Yeah.
But I can understand that because my daughter, she's the same way. She's like, I would not mind getting a cash register job or doing, waitressing or anything like
Hmm.
that. She's like, I just don't want to sit in front of a computer and read all day.
Hmm.
So she doesn't like the reading and the English comprehension. She never has. She was too much like me. I did not like sitting and reading. I was too busy wanting to go outside and fish and ride four wheelers and stuff. So yeah,
Well, and you look at it, and you and I have talked about this before, talking about the military and kids going in the military and people getting hurt and the readiness and all that. Um, Society's got to make up their mind what an adult is. Like you got to sign up for the draft when you turn what 18, right?
I'm not
So,
going to get into this topic with you.
well, okay. I'm just saying though, they got to make up their mind what an adult is.
They can't make up their damn mind what gender they are. And it says on their damn birth certificate.
Right, but I'm talking about
So
society as a whole, right? The government says 18, but then they turn around and say, well, it's 18 for this, but it's 21 for that, and now it's 25 for this, right? But if you're 17 and your girlfriend is 16, y'all better be 7 feet apart all the time, or the 17-year-old gonna go to jail, right? But then they want to put them in the military at 17, 18 years old.
mhm.
I mean, I was at a particular military base here in Texas. I'm not gonna say which branch or what city or anything, but I was at this military base going to a school when they busted a porno ring in the barracks being run by a bunch of students and basically just gave them a slap on the wrist. And these were students who were going to have to go on and get they were going to have to get a top secret clearance, most of them, for the jobs they were going to. They got them a slap on the wrist and then all their stuff confiscated. And, they got some extra duty or whatever. But at the time, this particular job field these kids were going into, they were giving them a $50,000 bonus the day they finished basic training and couldn't figure out why they were getting in trouble. Now, you and me both know, even back in our day, if they would have given you $50,000 at 18 years old, I'd have been in prison because I'd have gone buck wild.
If I'd have got $50,000 at 18 years old, I'd have had a new truck, a brand new bass boat, and I'd have been broke as hell, couldn't afford gas for either one of them.
Exactly.
I
That's what
mean,
I'm
that's
saying.
just the way I thought back then. I need a new four wheeler, I need a new deer rifle, I need a new boat. But
I'd have been
back
all over
then,
the house making it
I have
rain.
somebody call me like, "Hey, you want to go hang out this weekend?" It's opening weekend. Why the hell are you even calling and asking that? No, have a good day. Beep. I was more interested in hunting and fishing and stuff like
Oh,
that than
I
I
was
was
interested in hunting,
partying. Oh, I was hunting. I didn't have to hunt very long. Not very far for that.
but but our society has changed. Our military, which had always tried to stay the same, right? And there were things that needed to change, like, we needed doctrinal changes in training. Like, we were always training for the last war, right? Like, I went in 1985, they were still trying to train us how to fight in Vietnam, and we were looking at them going, y'all do realize that's not where the next war is going to be.
Yeah, I've done made that comment a
Yeah.
couple times because people talk about hey, we're going to go do this charity, and I'm like, why? We won't ever be in that climate for at least 20 years.
Yeah.
So we're not even around that area yet. If we had to fight that, that's going to be an air and drone. But it ain't gonna matter. I mean, the next war is not really gonna be on the ground anyway. We all know there's going to be boots on ground eventually, but this is going to be mostly a tech war.
Well, they're training space marines now.
Holy shit! Move over, Batman, Superman. They're coming back to get your kryptonite. You better sit your ass down. Jesus Christ!
Hey,
They're
at least they don't have to worry about them pulling a muscle in
gonna
outer
run up there.
space.
The Space Marines are going to run up there and just be badasses now.
Hey, they don't have to worry about them pulling a muscle in outer space.
They trying to send people to the moon, but they want somebody to go out there and leave. Sorry, I had email. They want somebody to pull up there on the moon and live up there, but they can barely get somebody to go to the moon to step on foot on it. They're like, we don't care about the moon. We want to go to Mars. We
Well,
want
we
to go
already went
here.
to the moon, and we
Huh?
never went. We never went back to the moon. Like, I don't understand. You made it to the moon with technology that wasn't as advanced as a pocket calculator, and then within 50 years of that, we've advanced to supercomputers that fit in your pocket, and you
Yeah.
still can't figure out how to get back to the moon.
No, they know how to get back to the moon, but they don't. They're like, why do we want to go back to the moon? We've already know what's there. We've
Well,
already had
the thing
9 billion rovers. We've got pictures of every inch. We don't need to know.
the thing
We
is
want to go
though,
to Mars. But
the thing is though, if we put a base on the Mars, right, an Earth base on Mars, then we can construct craft there. And it takes less fuel to launch off of the moon to go deeper into space.
I don't care about deeper into space. By that time, I hope like hell I am disintegrated and Biden is nowhere around me. Because I right now stand 100% with LSU. Did you see all that going on?
No, I didn't see it today.
So apparently, I don't know how all of it started with the player, but and what's going on with Iowa or whoever it was, Ohio or whatever. It was Iowa and LSU. But apparently, Joe Biden, said that he thinks that Iowa was going to win, not LSU or some shit like that. I don't really care. And you know, uh, they didn't win. LSU won the female national championship, and they said that they were going to in sportsmanship they were going to also invite Iowa to the White House. Never been done in the history. And the lady was like, the player was like, but if we'd have lost, we wouldn't have been invited.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those things that, she, Dr. Jill Biden came on and gave a national apology. And the
Well,
player looked at her and straight said, she said, well, you said what you said. She's like, if it was Barack and Michelle, we'd come, but it's not. I was like, damn, that's just kind of one of those things that, ow,
well,
that's a slap in the face. But
it just goes back to what I say, and I've been saying this since I was a young man and old enough to read a history book or a political book. There's a war in America that never ended. It just went cold. I think you know which one I'm talking about. And it's unfortunate because the winners write the books and the winners have written the books to create a class of victims, and that goes over into our military too. They trying to convince people that they're victims forever and ever and ever. I served with people of every color and nationality in the military, and I grew up in a Marine Corps household, and I was always taught there was only back then there was only two colors of Marines. You know what those two colors were? Light green and dark green. That was it. So that's how I grew up. I never even thought about racism, and I grew up most of my life in the South. I never even thought about racism until after I got out of high school. Like, I didn't pay any attention. I had friends of every persuasion you could think of. I didn't care. Yeah, we all cut up with each other, just like in the military. You can't even cut up with each other no more in the military. Not like we used to, you know. You can't joke around with nobody because somebody gonna get one of their feelings hurt, and the other day, what did they do? They got rid of an EO unit and created a diversity, inclusion, and equity unit. I, I was in the
I was
military for 30
told by
years.
our production manager that I'm not allowed to talk about that.
Well, you're not, but he didn't tell me that.
Okay.
But my point is, for 30 plus years, I was in and around the military, and as far as I knew, everybody was fucking included.
I,
And unless you,
I know that all of us were overseas. That you know that we're overseas. I'm sorry. Everybody that was overseas, even you were overseas. You just never
right?
whatever. But if they were going to shoot you or kill you, they didn't say, "Oh, look, there's the black guy. I'm going to shoot him. Hey, look, there's the white guy. I don't want to. I'm going to shoot him first." No, they said, "Hey, there's a damn American. Let's kill him." That's what they said. They didn't care what color you were. They cared what flag you had on. That's what it
Yeah,
was. There was no racism. It's green. You're red, white, and blue. You're all the same. You're American. And growing up, my dad was a Vietnam veteran. He told me. He said, "Man," he said, "we had a black guy that was with me." He said that sucker was about 6'4". He said, "Big guy, always wear." He was the M60 gunner. He said, "They always give the biggest dudes the biggest guns because they could carry them." Apparently, he's like, "I don't know." And he's like, "We were down in the swamps," and he's like, "Man, I just could not get my feet up." He said, "Hey, don't worry about it. Come here, I got you, brother." And he picked me up and carried me out of the swamp of Vietnam. He was like, I was stuck, you know. And he was like, "Man, when you're over there, it's different. It doesn't." He's like, because growing up in the 40s and the 50s, like he did,
right.
with segregation and the integration and stuff, and then him going into the military, that was really his first experience of the actual segregation of everybody coming together, of the African American and well, not African American, I say black
Hmm.
descendants of African, but you're black Americans. Uh,
Americans of African descent.
yeah, whatever. And everybody coming together, that was just a big deal, and stuff right then back in Vietnam. And it's just, they were just raised different. You go into a store, on the front of the store it says, no colors allowed, or
Hmm.
whites only, or whatever it said back then. And now, all that's gone and everything, and it seems like we're retracting.
Yeah, we're
America
going back.
retracting. We're going backwards. We should be going forward. There's, you know, it's like they keep talking about cops. There's going to be bad cops. Dude, there's bad doctors. There's bad dentists. There's bad people in every
Well,
profession.
you and I both worked in jails. We know there's bad people that work in the jail, not just in there as inmates.
Hell, there's some of the inmates I would trust more than some of the damn people that work in the jail. I know that's a damn fact, because
Hmm.
I got one that I go fishing and hunting with, and I miss the shit out of him. He's in East Texas, and he was actually in there for a charge that he he was given deer meat that was poached, and he didn't know it was poached. And then by the time the affidavit came out that the guy took advantage of it, yeah, it was poached, and then he just went ahead and he signed the affidavit saying, "Yeah, I poached it." And then my buddy was like, he got out of jail. But that's how I met the guy, and me and him hunted and fished together for 5, 6 years after that. And man, we've taken some big fish together, lots of hogs together. So it's just one of those things. There's bad people in every profession. There's bad people all over the world. It don't matter, you know. It just seems like America's retracting right now, and I'm not happy about it. The kids right now, the recruiting numbers are so low that they're signing people waivers that basically should just be out, but they're signing waivers for these people to keep them in the military so they have enough strength to say they have this force that really and truly you have the people, but you have the bodies, you don't have the people.
Hmm.
And that's kind of
They're
one
not.
of those things.
They're
Like
not.
when we were in Iraq, we had two guys that were in casket, couldn't go out on the wire, but you had to meet that percentage of deployment. So they had to go with us, which was ridiculous because we didn't have the medical care for them to actually get that shit off and us to x-ray, make sure it was okay, and the physical therapy. So
Well, they're trying to create numbers in the force, and all they're doing is creating bullet sponges.
oh yeah.
Because if
Well,
you don't have a ready force, all you're going to have is a high number of casualties.
I mean, look at China and Ukraine right now. I mean, not China and Ukraine, I'm sorry, Russia and Ukraine. Russia is still fighting Cold War era style. He's still throwing numbers of troops at them. I mean, that's all they had going for them, because every piece of new technology that they have gotten is supposed to be the best of the best just got wrecked. And that's before we even started providing the big missiles and shit for them to
Yeah.
wreck it. This is stuff like back World War II era shit, blowing up the new tech stuff. These guys are just
Well,
warped like that. But
but look at what we're running into now is the higher ups in our military are trying to tell the administration, hey, look, we got to stop donating to the cause because we running out over here and the factories can't keep up because they can't get a workforce because of all the stuff going on, you know?
that's another thing. I mean, I was looking at the VA the other day, and I'm gonna put a video out on this here in a little bit. It's it was a thing about the VA saying their onboarding time is almost a year for the
I
basic physician.
look,
Now, like your specialty physicians, year and a half, everything. I was like, really? I mean, onboarding a year and you're so short. Don't you think there would be some kind of rush to get that? I mean, once you pass your state boards and your state shit and all your insurance stuff, and you verify it, basically, hey, you're a provider. Come on in, have a good day. Here's your VA shit.
well,
Bye.
let me give you an example of that. I had a job with the VA. So here's how it went down when I got my job with the VA that I had. I applied because it said it was for Dallas, right? Because this is my home. I applied for a job here in Dallas. I put in all the paperwork, did everything. I waited, waited, waited. I finally gave up because I hadn't heard from them. It'd been just over a year. I got a phone call. Hey, can you come in for an interview? Well, yeah, I can come in for an interview. I want to work at the VA and look out for my fellow veterans, right? So I go, put on my tie and shirt, trying to look semi professional as best I can. I go in there, I do the interview. The interview went great. I interviewed with like two people in the room, somebody on the screen, somebody on the phone, all at once. Took my little typing test or whatever it was, and they were like, "Congratulations, you're hired." They told me about a week later, "Hey, you're hired." I'm like, "Cool. When do I start working?" Oh, well, they gave me a start date. You got to do all this onboarding and this paperwork, blah blah blah. Your start date's in like 3 months. I'm like, okay. So I'm figuring I'm gonna make that happen. Then they hit me with, oh, by the way, the job is in Montana. Well, shit, I already said yes. I'm kind of a weird person. When I say yes, I'm gonna do what I said I was gonna do. And I didn't dislike the idea of moving to Montana, right? So one of the pitches they had given me was, well, if you move to Montana, this little town you're moving to, the VA has some condos on their property that they rent out to the employees, and it's it's a good deal. It's like $800 a month for a 3-bedroom condo, and you pay your utilities. So I was like, cool. So I called up there. They're like, yeah, we got that. Cool. So I told my wife and kids, hey, I'm gonna go up ahead of y'all. I'm gonna get stuff set up, get us in one of them little houses because it might take some time, and then I'll get y'all up here. So I get up to the little town. Come find out, oh, well, the VA ain't renting those no more. They renovated them. They were all brand new, but then the director of the VA Montana decided not to rent them out no more. They just sitting there rotting, right? So then I find out the base in Helena, the home port, so to speak, in Helena, they got big houses for rent. But you gotta, you basically gotta kill somebody to get a job in Helena, right? So then I start investigating and find out the director of VA Montana and the congressman for that area of Montana own all the rent houses in this little town. And so they made it where you couldn't rent those houses. Well, then they jacked all the prices up because the oil field went crazy 250 miles away. And I ended up living in my truck for a while and working a full time job at the VA and a full time job at Walmart. And then I moved into a hotel that was charging me $800 a month for a bed and a bathroom, no kitchen. And then I ended up paying $500 a month to live in somebody's basement while still working 2 jobs. And I finally, after 5 months, said, you know what? This ain't working. My family can't come up here and live like this. I got to go. VA Texas needed telehealth technicians, which is what they certified me to do while I was up there. I finished all my training, got certified. VA Texas won't hire you as a telehealth technician unless you're an RN.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, the job only paid $34,000 a year. Ain't no RN even in 2013 gonna work for $34,000 a year if they're worth the damn.
No, I mean Monday through Friday physician jobs. They make more than that just
Yeah.
Monday through Friday, and that's
So you got all these different rules with the VA from state to state. Like VA Montana will hire you, certify you. VA Texas won't accept your certification, won't hire you unless you're an RN to do telehealth. Well, that doesn't make any sense because the only thing you do in telehealth that's touchy feely is take vitals.
which is a CNA job,
I mean,
basic EMT
yeah.
base.
I mean, you could teach
First
a first
responders.
you could teach a Red Cross first responder basic class how to take vitals. It's
Yeah,
not that hard, and everything else you do as a telehealth technician is the doctor telling you, hey, take the scope and look in this nostril. Hey, take the scope and look in this ear. That's it. And you talk to the patient. So the VA across the board doesn't have an across the board standard.
me and Josh were actually just talking about this earlier gaming because I was reading up on the MDMA and I told my wife this morning. I was like, man, I'm taking 8 goddamn meds a day. I said, I am just sick of it. I'm not 40 years old and I'm taking more damn medication more people do, in their life. And I was like, and I have for
Mhm.
most of my life, since, the military and all this other stuff. And then, everything with my dad and all, uh, it's just one of those things that I, I don't understand why the VA is just throwing meds at you. And across the board is totally different. We had a vet when I was a vice vice commander over there at 6798. He came
Mhm.
in, he moved from, I want to say Arizona, New Mexico, somewhere, and he was a Vietnam veteran that was on the LSD treatment in that VA project for 30 something years. This guy was on LSD. Moved to Texas. Texas doesn't approve the project, had to go through withdrawals. He died less than a week later
Mhm.
because they didn't approve it. So why in the hell is it a federal standard? but the standards are not across the board.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're letting states regulate that, and that kind of it should be a standard of care across the board federally. If
Right.
they get it there, they should be able to get it in Texas.
Well,
If
the
they get it in
VA
Texas, they should get it in Washington State to New York. The
think
VA
about
should be
this.
across the board.
The VA should be the inverse of the National Guard system, right? The National Guard Bureau is state by state, but it's subfunded by the U.S. government. So
That's
the VA should be funded by the U.S. government and meet one standard across the board, and then all the states should just contribute their piece of the money to support the effort. The state shouldn't be making the rules for what the VA does. That'd be like the National Guard Bureau telling the Army, "Hey, you can't drive your tanks in Texas."
yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't because I mean, why? Just like this guy, if I go say I'm on this medication here, if I go to New York, hey, well, that's not really approved through us. No, so we're going to switch you all on your new meds and really fuck you up. And it killed the guy.
Well,
Hell, I mean, it's LSD. I mean, shit,
even
50 years,
even
30 years, 40 years on LSD would really kill you anyway.
but
But that's what it
even
was.
simple stuff, like when I was in Montana, the doctor at the VA up there, because I was in the clinic every day, I could see the doctor finally, and he looked at all my X-rays and stuff, and he was like, "Man, you got to have surgery," and he gave me a prescription for shoes, like they were supposed to give me shoes to support my joints and stuff, right?
Right.
So when I moved back down here, I turned all that over to VA Dallas, and they said, "Oh, Texas don't give you shoes. We'll give you these inserts, and 6 months from now, you got to bring them back and get some new ones." Well, I ain't never been back. I still use the inserts because they're hard as a brick. But why not just give me the shoes, and then all you got to do every 6 months is mail a pair of shoes to my damn house? Or why do I have to turn back in my inserts? Like, just mail me new inserts every 6 months. It ain't that hard.
No. And a lot of that is even my sleep apnea now. I mean, I had to wear that stupid mask just like you do. Well, the
Mhm.
VA now used to you would just call like the prosthetics department or whatever the hell it was in Dallas VA. You would get your mask, you get your tubing, you get all your stuff, you get your filters for your machine, your water, whatever you got. Now you have to call the VA, make sure that it's in the system. Then you've got to get a hold of the company in Colorado that does the ordering, that actually manufactures the products, that sends it to the VA. The VA has to make sure it's the right product, send it back to them, and then they got to send it out to you or some shit like that. It is such ridiculous government bullshit.
And this is
Just
why,
give me a tube. That's all I
this,
needed was a
but
tube.
this is why I have always said the VA should be an extension of military medicine. When you leave the military, you should take your record, right, your medical record, and report to the VA. That should be one of your reporting stations to get out. I am transferring care from here to here. Like, now you have to give the VA permission to look at your military medical record. How stupid is that?
Yeah, that's retarded. I mean, it's
And this is all part of the lack of whatever. And when we start going back and talking about readiness in the military and how prepared we are, I've always said, the military always used to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. Man, you got to report waste, fraud, and abuse. Well, what's the biggest waste that the military has? You know what the biggest waste that the military has? They waste veterans. You got eons of experience and eons of knowledge, and they can't. When it's time for you to get out, they can't wait to get rid of your ass, and they want you to apply for some job. It's never a job where you live. It's always got to be, oh, you want to make $12 an hour and live in Japan. No, because you make $12 an hour living in Japan, you're starving to death,
right. I
right?
you got
But
to
I
make like
mean,
100 G's a year just to get a simple little bitty ass apartments there.
right. But you look at a base the size of Fort Hood, right? Like, or whatever they call it now. What Fort? I can't even remember the name they gave it now. But anyway, we're gonna still say Fort Hood. So you look at a base the size of Fort Hood. when I was at Fort Hood, you got the Fort Hood Police Department, right? Which is federal police. You got the MPs on Fort Hood, which is military police, which really doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, and then you had the security guards on the gate who were all civilians.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say when I was there, I'm going to say around like maybe 30% of them were veterans. There's no reason for a guard at a military base to not be former military. That should just be a requirement.
Well, the problem is one when guys get out, they leave. So,
True, they leave
but
because they want to go home or whatever. But
right, but the senior NCOs, you know, the enlisted, they get out, they leave, they go home. They go back to their families. They don't want to be around no damn military base unless they're, you know, that's where they're
Mhm.
from. But you know, when they get out, they don't want to go back to work on a military base. They don't want to put another uniform on. Most of us didn't. I did because you know I enjoyed being a correctional officer and a jailer for what you know for
Mhm.
the time I was, even though it was like almost a decade. Um, so it's just one of those things that the senior NCOs that are getting out and retiring are getting the positions as a civilian contractor
Mhm.
at a higher level. They're not
Mhm.
going to stand there and no get check no damn ID card and salute
But
somebody. Thank
right,
you, sir. Have a good day.
but
Oh,
but
thank you,
right,
ma'am.
but this
Have
is
a good day.
this is my point. They shouldn't be contract jobs. Those should be Department of the Army civilian jobs. And when you're getting out and you go through that station, they should say, "We have the following jobs available here," right? Or we have the following jobs available. Where is it you're from? Oh, you're from Nowhereville, Oklahoma. It just so happens that on the lake there, the Coast Guard station has a need for an administrative assistant, uh, and it pays $30,000 a year, but it's 2 miles from your house where you say you live. Would you be interested in that job? Well, based on your military experience, we do see that you're qualified to be an administrative assistant because you know how to show up on time and write your name. So let's put you at that job. That's how that should work. Nobody should leave the military without a job. And for active duty side, it's a little better, but like on the reserve side, they just expect you to have a job. Like when I first went in the military and I was in the reserves, we didn't even have access to TRICARE. We couldn't even buy TRICARE. I didn't even get a GI Bill the first time I went in the military. I had to sign up for like 2 extra years when they came out with a GI Bill for us.
Really?
Yeah. And when I would go to them and say, "Hey, I need to go to sick call on drill weekend because I hurt myself or whatever." No, you're a reserve. You go find yourself a doctor and buy yourself some insurance somewhere. Have a nice day. Get that from your civilian job. That's how
Right.
it used to be. My mom, 14 years she was in the Navy Reserve. Never had TRICARE, never had a GI Bill because it didn't exist at that time for reservists. And
Yep.
so on the reserve side, they actually have people at the reserve side monitoring you, talking to you all the time, telling you to make sure you stay employed in a job, but then can't understand why you can't keep a job when they're always calling you in to do stuff. Or when you're an NCO and they want to have an NCO meeting at midnight on a Tuesday because your senior NCO or your commander lives on the opposite coast from you, and that's convenient for them.
Sorry, guys. Uh, no, I really didn't have to go through too much of that.
Yeah, I mean, you were active duty all the time.
Yeah. So
So there's trade-offs either way, but my thing is anybody who's getting out of the military, like they're done or they're retiring, they should go to a place and be looked at for jobs to keep them serving the country because most of us serve the country because we wanted to, right? Like I think I told you that story about I had that lieutenant that time that told me they were gonna at my drill weekend because I left to go get my whole crew a thing of Starbucks while we were doing an inventory, and they were in a big meeting, and the lieutenant saw me leaving and said they were going to dock me half a day's pay for leaving the area. And I told them okay, and they said, "Well, you don't care about the money." And I was like, if I was doing this to get rich, I'd have got out a long fucking time ago.
Right.
like, like nobody on the enlisted side's getting rich. I can tell you that right now. Unless you make, once you make sergeant major, you're doing okay. But by
Mm,
then, you're about to retire anyway.
yeah, E6, E7 does pretty well.
Yeah,
You
but I'm
know,
saying
I mean,
just in general.
it's a livable salary.
Yeah.
E
So
E4 and below, no, not so much.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, back in the day, even in the '80s, the early '80s, if you were below E5, I know the Navy used to do that. If you were active duty Navy and you wanted to get married, you had to get written permission from your commander if you were below the rank of E5. If you were below the rank of E4, you couldn't even have a car.
And now they getting cell phones in basic.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Hell, I got what, one, two. I think we got 4 phone calls in basic training. One when we got there saying, "Hey, we got here. Tell mom and dad you love them because it's gonna be a long time before you talk to them again, or husband or wife or whoever. Tell them smoochy smoochy. Tell your kids bye." And then when
Well,
we got down the hill, we got our first 3 weeks or whatever. Then we got a phone call. Say, "Hey, we're all alive. Love you. Talk to you. You got like 3 minutes or whatever, 5 minutes," and then we got off, which was enough to say, "Hey, I love you. Talk to you later. Bye." Then we got another one like at 6 weeks, and then we got one before we graduated to tell them, "Hey, this is what we're graduating. Blah 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 blah. How many people are coming, so we can tell the drill sergeants or whatever, so they can do all the planning and all that." That's about all we did. I
mhm.
mean, it
Well,
wasn't no cell phones in basic, no video games in basic, AIT or nothing like that. Hell, we didn't even get to go off. I didn't get to go off base of AIT until after EMT school, which is a long.
well, when I first went into the military in the Navy, you got to boot camp. You got that one phone call when you got there, and it had the little script on the wall. Hi, mom and dad, I'm here. I'm alive.
Yep,
Love you. Bye. That was it. You left. Then
exactly it.
literally,
Yeah, that's the first one.
yeah,
That was the
literally,
first.
because we got there at like 2 o'clock in the morning. By 6 o'clock, they had issued you everything you were going to get for the next 6 weeks, and cut your hair, and you were in line at the chow hall in civilian clothes, carrying all your crap to be grounded outside in formation. And then you went in, you ate, then you went back and you went over back to the holding area, because you had to wait to class up for several days or whatever. You classed up, put on your uniform, marched to your barracks, and then they had other things like you could tell who the more senior recruits were, because as you moved up, you got to wear certain things. Like once you got to the last 2 or 3 weeks, you got to wear the white leggings with your uniform and all that kind of stuff. But we didn't even get mail for 4 weeks. We weren't allowed to have mail. And the only thing we were allowed to read was you used to have a manual called the Blue Book. I don't know if the Navy still uses the Blue Book or not, but you had the Blue Book, and that literally was like your Bible on how to be in the Navy.
Yeah,
That's what you were allowed to read. If you weren't doing anything, you better be reading that book.
I
Kind of
think
like
we had
your
one too. It was
yeah,
some kind of the
you had your smart book.
yeah, the smart
Yeah,
book.
I had one of them too when I got to the army. I had the smart book. If you ain't doing nothing, you better be reading your smart book,
Yep.
right? If you were standing around coking and joking, they'd walk up, "Hey, why ain't you reading your smart book?" Oh, blah, 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 blah. Just get
You
down.
know,
Right?
yeah, and they didn't understand. They were like, you know, what do medics do in the rear? And I was like,
But
nothing,
people,
nothing. When we're sitting stateside, we don't do anything.
but
We go through MES sets. We sit in the tow room and talk about. all kinds of medic scenarios, the proper treatment, medications. How would you do it? And that all you're going through different scenarios all the time, and your brain's
Yeah.
always running. So, I mean, you're not always not busy, but as a medic that's in, let's just say you're an HAC and not in a combat unit, you're not a line medic, which I've done both.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different because when you're on a line unit, you're an infantry guy with an aid bag, but also you're a protected infantry guy with the aid bag because you're the one that's going to save their ass if something happens to you. So they take care of their medics. You take care of them, they're going to take care of you. I love my infantry guys. I miss the shit out of them. My scouts were amazing. I've got my spurs and my gold spurs and my Stetson. I don't, I didn't, I had a Stetson somewhere and I don't even know where the hell it's at. I think my ex-wife
But
left her or something. I don't remember, but
what I was gonna say about that,
amazing.
talking about traditions, things that we always did in the military that were traditions, and in basic training, like when I was in the Navy, and when you got to a certain point, like the web belt, right? Well, when you were early on, you wore the green web belt, the combat belt. You know what I'm talking about? The big belt that goes with
Oh
your
yeah,
FDE.
the
You had
yeah.
you had one of those that you wore every day, and you had your PT roll on the back of it. It had your tennis shoes and your PT towel rolled up in it, and you basically had your PT clothes on under your clothes. So at any moment they could just call PT, and you just and then you had this towel, and the only reason you had the towel was because they did PT on a flat piece of concrete called the grinder, where there was a lot of gravel, and the towel was there just so you didn't get gravel in your chest and your face. You're still pushing with your hands on the gravel, whatever. But and then later on, you got your white leggings and all that. So you were moving up in the world, so to speak. This has even this depletion of tradition and readiness has pushed out of the military into ROTC programs, into one of the largest ROTC programs outside of a military academy in the United States. When they got a new assistant commandant who came in and told all the cadets, I'm going to get rid of all of these stupid traditions because it's not healthy for the like prime example. It's this one school, the cadets, the brand new freshman cadets, on the walkways there was concrete, and then every so often there was a row of bricks in between the concrete pads. Well, they weren't allowed to walk on the bricks.
You're not
So
allowed
if
to
you
walk on
watch
the bricks. You got to
so if
stay
you
on the
watch
left
them,
or the right side
oh no,
and go
you
with the flow of traffic, hands behind your back
well,
or on your
yeah,
side
but
or
you
your
had to watch
backpack
them, and they
on. You have to do the salute. I was in military
yeah.
college. Yeah,
So, but at this particular college, they could jump over the bricks. So you watch them, and they'd be walking, with a purpose. And when they got to the bricks, they bob up and bob back down, right, and so on and so forth. And that commander, that assistant commandant, came in and said, "We're getting rid of all of that because I don't like it. This is a tradition that's 100 years old."
Mhm. But I mean, it's the same thing with renaming military post. This whole woke society, whole woke culture. Let's remove all the history. Let it repeat itself. You know,
But
and
let's
then you got people that are flatlanders, and then you got the Holocaust people that never happened, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, y'all keep saying all this, and you keep trying to erase history, and history is doomed to repeat itself all the
yeah,
time. And you keep erasing this history that's not even 100 years old yet.
right.
It will happen again because you're
Well, and
trying
my
to erase
thing is,
it on.
I'm all for naming bases after other people that have served this country. But we're opening new bases all over the world,
Yeah.
or we're reopening facilities, like especially on the reserve side of the house. Like they're taking what used to you had a guard. You used to have the guard armories, and then down the road you had a reserve center for the army, and then over here you had a Navy Reserve Center. Well, they're combining all that now and building brand new ones. So let's start naming those after people. Let's start bringing that history in. Don't get rid of history. Bring the history in, right?
Well, that's what they're trying to do. Is it offends everybody. But I've talked to a lot of people,
Well, what about the
and
people who are offended by you getting rid of it?
yeah, they don't care. because usually it's a white male conservative, and that don't matter. But that's just the way it is, dude. I mean, the whole cancel and woke culture. I'm not getting into it because it just pisses me off. I mean, people are fucking stupid.
But
I mean,
but my thing is,
now that mental illness is regular and accepted in society as a gender identity crisis. Let's just go ahead and put it out there what it is. I don't give a shit.
yeah,
Being
masculinity
gay is
is a
one thing. Being
masculinity is a
lesbian,
toxic mental illness.
but the whole trans situation, I'm not even going to get into the whole
Yeah,
situation there. I mean, yeah, everybody can say what the hell they want to. We both have a kid that is actually gay, so
yeah.
it doesn't hurt our feelings because they're still our children. We still gonna love them the way we love them, and we still want the best for them. As long as the person they're with, they're happy with, and they're not hurting them or being hurt by them or hurting the other person, and it's a happy, healthy, successful relationship. Then I don't care. I don't care as long as the person you're with is happy and you're happy with them. That's fine. And I've told my daughter that because when she told me, she said she come out to me. She's like, "Dad, I'm gay." I was like, "Okay, and what do you want? I'm in the middle of a video game. I'll talk to you later. I love you. Bye." And I went back to playing my game. I mean, it
Yeah.
was just that. I mean,
Well,
of course,
you know,
I had
I,
clues when I told her we're going to Hooters, and she was more excited about going to see the titties than I was. I mean, I had a clue there, so I
well,
already knew
I'll
that
be
she was
honest.
going on there. So,
It wasn't the choice I wanted my son to make. It wasn't what I wanted for my son.
wasn't what I
But
wanted for my daughter, but
and there are certain limits to which I will go in cooperation with him on things with that of that nature, and but that's mine and his business. But as I told him, I care more about him than I care about him being gay.
yeah, I mean, I still love you. You're still my
Yeah,
child.
like like I might make fun of him for being gay, but ain't nobody else gonna make fun of him for being gay.
I do.
I know you do, but your family anyway. It's funny.
I tell, I loved him because he's funny as hell. I miss Jack. I need to go see him. But
Drive
anyway,
your ass out there to Sulphur
hell
Springs,
no,
get a
that's a
cup of
long
coffee.
drive just to get a little bit of Jack. I mean, that's like getting a half of a chocolate chip cookie and you wanting the whole damn cookie cake.
But
Just don't happen. That's one
but
of the things you got to hang out with him for a day so you can sit and laugh it all out.
but here's my thing, and this is what I'm gonna say, and Barry's probably gonna get mad at me. The whole wokeness and all this other stuff has no place in the military. It's not the military's mission.
Air Five, I agree. I have already looked and I've been doing the research because apparently with YouTube, you cannot really talk about the whole trans movement because it's monetization, hate speech, and you
No,
know
you
discrimination
cannot
and all
speak
this other
out.
shit.
You cannot speak out in opposition to.
Whatever. It's not really opposition. I mean, it just doesn't have a place in the military, and I agree.
Again, it
I mean,
doesn't matter to
come on.
me.
The military does not need to be worried about your feelings and your fucking you
Right.
know I
But
understand, like, if somebody's talking to you like you're a pile of shit every day,
that's
you wake
different.
up and it's like, "Hey, you stupid motherfucker, get up, get out of bed, blah, 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 blah." Now,
Right.
that's different. But
But
if I walk up and I be like, "Hey, shitbag, fix your damn bootlaces. That looks like shit. All right, good job. Carry on."
but
That's
you
the
look at
on correction. That's the way we were.
right. But you look at mission requirements, right? So when you start looking at trans people and other issues, right? It creates logistical issues medically because it's not just trans people that have to take medication, right? There's people that can't deploy because they're diabetic, but they're already in the military when they become diabetic, and you can't get insulin to where they need to deploy to, so you can't deploy them there, right?
Like,
Like
you
they
can't,
can't deploy
what
you.
is it? Uh, HIV and
Yeah, I was gonna
confirmed
say if
TB
you've
and
got
hepatitis, I
HIV,
think.
if
Like,
you
I
got
guess
HIV, they can't deploy you,
they can't deploy. Yeah.
right?
There's
So
there's a whole list of
yeah,
stuff like that. They can't deploy you because of medical reasons.
I mean it's hard for some people in the military. They carry the trait, but it doesn't develop until they get in there. Sickle cell.
Yeah.
you can't deploy because they can't get your medicine to you. And guess what? Sickle cell doesn't just affect people of well, it doesn't just affect people that you think are of African descent. My
Well, I
first
mean,
my first 10 years in the military, they kept testing me because they told me I carried the trait. I didn't know I had African ancestors until about 2 years ago.
yeah. But I mean, if you look at me, I have the hereditary spherocytosis, so I've had my spleen out. My
Right.
daughter has it. My nephew has it. My mom had it. My brother had it. It's hereditary. I mean, it's in the fucking name. It's hereditary. I did everything I did, and I deployed and did all that. The Air Force wouldn't take me though because I couldn't give a blood transfusion on site or something like that.
Yeah.
Some bullshit
Well, I
excuse.
mean,
I didn't listen to him because I was like, yeah, whatever. I just wanted to see what my options were. I don't care. I was down between the Navy and the Army anyway. I didn't want to be a crayon eater because I'm not that damn stupid, and I didn't want to be in the Air Force because I didn't fit in with the pretty fuck boys. So it was either the Navy or the Army. So those
but I
two
mean,
only wouldn't really work for a living.
right. Even if you're on CPAP or BiPAP, you can only deploy somewhere that has constant, reliable power.
Yeah, because you have to have the machine,
Right. You can't go
and
sleep in the field.
if you have the oxygen back up,
Yeah.
if you have to have the oxygen for it. But usually, if you have to have the oxygen on that shit,
You're done.
you're out. You're gone.
Right.
That's already.
Yeah,
And I did find
but
another thing out though. I do want to throw this out there for all the Vietnam veteran guys. That's really awesome news. The PACT Act did pass COPD. So if you have had COPD and made a claim before, go out there, look at it, because they will pay you from when you filed the claim before. So say you claimed that shit in the 80s and they denied it, and you just fuck it, I'm gonna let it go. And it was Agent Orange and da 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 da. Now you go back and say, hey, look, it's Agent Orange back here. It's in the 80s. I claimed it. It is related. I want my back pay from 80 so and so to now or whenever
mhm.
the hell you got paid. And they got to give it to you. That's why they spent $1 billion dollars on the PACT Act, and we gave trillions of dollars to Ukraine, and now they want to cut veterans' retirement by $12 billion.
Which
But
happens to be about the
we
amount of
stay
money
here to
we've
the
given
ass,
Ukraine.
we'd have the damn money for our shit.
But
It's
here's the
their
thing.
veterans, not ours.
Here's the thing. Just like in the civilian side, when a legal precedent is set, right? So somebody goes to court, kind of like the trial that's going on right now, and they set a legal precedent, right? So if certain groups of people in the military could say, you have to let me in the military and you have to take care of my medical needs, then everybody else that has special medical needs then has a foothold. So, like those of us with sleep apnea, we could be like, hey, I don't have sleep apnea. I'm sleep challenged and I need to be taken care of and I need to keep my job in the military.
Well, I understand that, and I did read about something, and I was told I could not get into this, but I'm pretty much. I have 3 viewers right now. I really don't give a fuck. All right, don't care if you don't monetize me and we don't make it big. I'm not trying to make $1 million. I don't care to make any money off of this actually, because most of it's going to go right back into veterans' pockets. I'm going to give it all to a 501(c)s, the community, whatever. The only thing I'm asking for is if we're paying for any subscriptions out of pocket, new equipment, whatever for everybody, because eventually we're gonna have everybody's gonna have to get the webcams, laptops, and if we can make the money back for that, and just keep up the equipment. That's all I really cared about. I don't give a shit about the rest of it. I'm not here to make $1 million. I don't care what this happens. Oh, my USB turned off. One of the but anyways, so did you see that transgender veterans are trying to get the VA to pay for one elective surgery, and it's a big surgery, a very inexpensive surgery, gender reassignment. Now, I'm going to touch on this, and I'm going to let it go. I'll be goddamn if there's veterans out here that are getting denied benefits that they fucking earned because some asshole got offended because he used the wrong fucking pronoun and now wants to chop his fucking dick off to be a female, but my buddy doesn't get the proper fucking treatment, there's going to be a goddamn problem in the VA. And VA and beyond up.
Well,
The
our
veterans
benefits.
get tired of it. You start giving the woke culture more shit than what these fucking guys have earned. It's fucking bullshit.
Well,
We earn our shit.
our benefits aren't supposed to cover elective procedures.
No, not
Like
at all. That's not what it's there for at all.
I can't just walk into VA and be like, you know what? I really don't like my left foot. Let's cut it off and you give me a new one and pay me for it. I can't do that. And I shouldn't be able to do that.
No, not at all. No. But
But if I have,
mean, these guys are starting to, they're trying. I mean, they're trying to get sexual reassignment, gender reassignment. They're trying to get all this other shit. And they're trying to get
I'd like to
hormones
find,
and all that. You
I'd
know
like
what?
I'd like the federal government to fund my financial reassignment. How about that? I'd like to be financially reassigned as a millionaire. Can they do that for me?
I can identify. I must be wrong gender. I must be a donkey because my wife calls me an ass all the damn time. And I'm tired of that shit too. Every time, every time I'm in a video game, they Josh starts his shit. You can't say it to him or her. Nah, hell, I'm a donkey. I identify as a donkey. My wife calls me an ass all the time. I don't care. Hell.
Hey, brother. Hey, brother. We might need to cut this off. We've been at this damn near 2 hours
20
already.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we only got a few hours. We'll have to talk about that later too on a business meeting.
Yeah.
I've got some good stuff on YouTube that I saw, and we'll get numbers
It's
and
gonna
that.
take you. It's gonna take you 3 days to edit everything we talked about today.
I'm not editing this. This is actually live, so it goes
Oh.
right to our YouTube platform, our Twitter, everything. Everybody can see this
Oh.
live. If I want to take it and edit some of this and cut it down for reels on our Facebook, I will. But we'll talk about this on another call.
I didn't say anything anybody hadn't heard me say already. So
No, hell, they know what we're trying to do. Everybody knows us. The three people that's on, or at least I appreciate them supporting us. I know it's probably our wives and probably either Brian or a friend of ours or family, but I appreciate it because I know I love them and they love us and they know we're trying and our heart's in the right place, and that's all that really fucking matters to me. And
yeah, I mean we
it gives us something to do. Hell, we're old and we get the vent, so
we ain't doing this to make.
don't have to hear it now anyway.
We ain't doing this for us to make a paycheck.
No, I'm not doing it for a check, man. I
I mean,
don't have no grand setup. I'm doing it because it's fun
Yeah.
and it keeps me updated on veterans issues and it helps, it, I don't even care about any of it really. I'm just doing it for fun. So if it becomes a business, it becomes a business, There's people out there that are good videographers and production people, and I'm not one of them. I don't have the patience to sit there and go through the film. I really just don't. I know what we said, and we've already done it. So why in the fuck do I got to watch it again? I don't have that kind of patience. So, you know, I'm looking at maybe bringing somebody else on and help us do something similar. Somebody that knows tech and production and stuff like that, because Barry's pretty good on the branding side and the managing side, but we need like the production and the other stuff. But we'll talk about that later. We'll get it all this straightened out. We'll get our rebrand up. I've got some ideas going on. And we kind of pretty badass from what I'm looking at. So, anyways, y'all have a good week. We'll see y'all next week. Same time, 7:30 Wednesdays, and we are out. I believe.